What is up, social media nation out there, Lamont at large, on this blustery day here in Great Bend, Kansas. Welcome to another edition of the dark side of insert whatever city or town that I'm currently at right now. In case you're new here, this series of videos is just a small collection of different crimes that have occurred and in a location where I am currently at. Guys, we got a wind warning. It's about 25 to 30 mile an hour gusts. I'm hoping this microphone could hold up to the task at hand. If it's too windy for you, I got other videos, I got other channels, some bad. Without further ado, this is the dark side of Great Bend, Kansas. Now, our first segment starts right here. This is the Barton County Courthouse. If you're a bad person, you're gonna have to come here, whether you drove a little bit too fast, you weren't wearing your seatbelt, or you did something criminal. You're gonna come over here. Now, this courthouse was built in either 1916 or 1917. So this isn't the original courthouse. This is the original courthouse. And where I'm walking at right now was the original town square. This is where oftentimes people would meet, people would congregate, they would exchange goods, they would talk about the latest town gossip. Some guy that's been nipping on too much of grandpa's medicine would stand on a soapbox and tells you what he really thinks about the local government here. And this patch of land is also the location of where a man was lynched. This here is a picture of 14-year-old Myrtle Hoffmaster. And Myrtle was your average 14-year-old girl growing up in the central part of Kansas in the late 1800s. She probably did what most 14-year-old girls in this area do nowadays, minus the technology and rapid ways of communication. Now, her father was a very prominent farmer here in the area. His name was William Hoffmaster. And William had a couple guys working as field hands for him. And one of them was a 50-year-old man, John Becker, originally from Illinois. Now, John is what we today would call a creep, a loser, a miscreant, a scumbag, a lame, a dweeb, a ped. Many, many names you can call this guy. That's what he was. Now, back in those days, he still would have been just a strange creep, is what I'm going to say. And so this guy, 50 years old, he has a crush on 14-year-old Myrtle Hoffmaster. And he would always tell her, hey, you're so pretty. Hey, you're so beautiful. Hey, I want to take you out on a hay ride or something like that, whatever they did back in those days. Now, I don't know if her dad or her mother knew about this guy sending kissy vibes to their teenage daughter, but in those days, it was rather common, particularly if you were poor, if your teenage daughter were to go marry somebody in their mid-20s. It was almost like kind of expected. That's kind of how it worked. The poorer you were, the quicker your father is to marry you off to a man of means, but not a man of no means that's 35 years older than your daughter. So this guy, this creepy John Becker, he's getting more and more infatuated with this girl, and he just can't stand it anymore. So on April 8th, 1898, John, he can't take it anymore. He's going crazy. She won't give him any attention. It's probably because you're a creepy loser and such. And so in his desperate attempt to win over her affection. When he finally says to himself, this ain't gonna work, he sees Myrtle out in the field, and he pulls out a gun and shoots her once in the shoulder. She turns around and she starts running and screaming for her mother. She runs to the house, and as she like runs to her mother in her embrace, this guy is right behind her. And as her mother's holding her daughter, he points the pistol at her and fires 4 more shots, killing her. She falls to the ground. And then, like a thief in the night, he runs for his life and he escapes. Now, he would be caught a few days later, about 26, 27 miles away in St. John. So he's captured by the deputies here in Barton County, and he's brought back here for answering to the charge of murder. Now, once the family of John Becker hear of this horrible crime that their family member has committed, they quickly send him money to mount a defense. Now, his friends and family, they know this guy's probably a creep, but he comes from a family of some kind of means. They're not destitute, they're not broke. So they send him some money so he can hire a lawyer. Now the lawyer tells him, okay, listen, we're gonna go for an insanity plea. Maybe you'll do about 10 to 15 years in prison, and hopefully you can make it out and then live the rest of your days being a creep in Illinois or wherever state you decide to settle down in. Now, because of this case and everybody in town being very, very PO'd and upset that this scumbag killed this 14-year-old girl, he somehow convinces the court that he's not going to be able to get a fair trial here because, you got people outside screaming at the jail, hoping that he could hear them saying that they want to kill him, that they're going to hang him up from that tree right there, buddy. Hey, I got a rope for you. I got a rope for you. And so the judge in the case decides that he's not going to get a fair trial here, so they're going to move the trial over to Lyons, which is about 30 miles east of here. But not if the residents of Great Bend, Kansas can help it. No, they're not going for that. So as they're transporting him to the train station, there is a good amount of people, at least 100, waiting for him at the train station because they're just going to do justice themselves. So the sheriff sees this mob of people coming towards the train station. So he tells John, he's like, hey, listen, you're gonna have to help me fight these guys off because they're gonna kill you. And so they start fighting for their lives. Now, at first, Sheriff Aber, or is it Aber, he's able to draw his revolver and kind of stay them away, like back. But some of the guys are like, you know what, I don't really care. You can go ahead and shoot me. I guess you got enough bullets for all of us. So the sheriff finally gives up, and they grab this guy. And as the sheriff is looking at them, he's like, man, I knew I should have moved him in the middle of the night. But I guess he just didn't listen to his instinct, because he knew that mob, if they really wanted to, they could have just stormed the jail and killed him right there. But they waited until they transported him out of here to that train station so they can get him. So as soon as they got him, it's June 8th, only a couple months after the murder, and somebody gets a rope. And at this time now, word has quickly spread that this guy is gonna get lynched, that they're gonna take him and they're gonna hang him high. And so they did. On June 8th, 1898, John Becker in one of these trees, I'm pretty sure it wasn't one of these trees, but somewhere in this square was a nice firm branch, and they hung that man, hung him high. And as he was hanging, I think one of the deputies was trying to get him down, and they're like, no, back up. Because now there's at least probably almost 1,000 people here, and they're angry. And they tell the deputies, if you don't get the hell away, you're gonna get some of this too. And they kept that man hanging in that tree until they knew that his life forces were totally gone. and his body was empty of a soul. And then they cut him down. I don't know what the hell they did with his body. Maybe his parents came and got him. I don't freaking know. But that was the beginning of a town in Great Bend saying, screw that. We're gonna take matters into our own hands. And they served John Becker true Kansas justice. Myrtle, rest from sin and sorrow. Death is over and life is won. On thy slumber dawns no sorrow. Rest, thine earthly race is run. Best believe, ever since the days of Cain and Abel to now, there has always been evil in this world. And there has always been sin. Here in Great Bend, I would call this right here a major intersection. We're on the corner of Harrison and 10th Street. And you got McDonald's over there, you got Walmart. Just behind that, you got a row of restaurants here and businesses over there. So right over here, this building, this used to be the Dolly Madison Bake Shop. And on September 4th, 2002, a delivery driver, it's around 7:55 p.m., and a delivery driver is coming to this building right here to make a delivery. He opens that door, and when he goes inside, he sees a horrifying sight right before his very eyes. There's two people on the floor in pools of their own blood. He immediately runs out and calls 911. When officers from the Great Bend Police Department arrive, there is little, if anything, they can do. They're already dead. It was 79-year-old Mary Drake and 24-year-old Mandy Alexander. This place had been robbed, and somebody in the process of the robbery killed both these ladies. They're not releasing how they were killed exactly, but more than likely, they were stabbed to death. Mary Drake was a customer here, and Mandy Alexander was working her third day at this job. She just got hired. So this murder has gone unsolved for the better part of 23 going on 24 years now. So apparently some person who more than likely has never lived in Great Bend, just a drifter, a scumbag, decided that he wanted to make some money and come to this place and rob them, and wanted to leave no witnesses behind. I don't know what kind of person decides that they want to go to a bakery to rob them. I mean, they're never gonna have any more than $200-300 in their register. And sadly, in this case, there was no surveillance video that I seen online anyways, and there was no evidence. However, a few years ago, they had said that they have the most tiniest, minute piece of physical evidence, being a very, very, very small DNA profile of the killer. However, that profile is so small they're unable to upload it to any kind of genealogy website simply for the fact that it's too small. So you have the description of a man who was between 6'1", 6'2", had shoulder length, collar length, light brown or blonde hair. He had like a 5 o'clock shadow, white male, maybe weighed about 180 pounds. He was seen coming out of this place right at around the time that the murders occurred, which would have been between 5 and 6:30 p.m. The only way this would ever get solved is if this person right here, if this person told somebody what he did. More than likely, just me, and I'm only guessing, because of this man killing 2 women over a few $100s, I'm imagining this guy is probably in prison somewhere, and his DNA is on file, but it's so small, that physical evidence, that they're unable to test it. The deaths of both Mary Drake and Mandy Alexander haunt this town. That this story is probably the most darkest, the most saddest, and the most deranged this town has ever known. And both these women's death, it's like a dark cloud that hovers over Great Bend. October 12th, 2013, 33-year-old Rhiannon Young is set to go to a get-together, a party, somewhere in the vicinity of this neighborhood. Now, during the party, witnesses say that the father of one of her children showed up to the party, and unfortunately, like a lot of times when there's a breakup, a separation, there's going to be some arguments. And at this party outside, they seen the man pull up in a white SUV. She comes outside and they start bickering, they start fighting. So he takes off, he leaves. Now at this party, Rhiannon, she had been drinking. So she leaves the party and she's walking alongside of this bypass right here. This is the 2300 block of US 281 bypass. So at this time now, she's walking and it's dark outside. Somebody driving alongside of this road right here, this highway, hit her. Now, by the time 911 was called, when she was discovered lying in a ditch somewhere on this corner, they discovered her, quote unquote, critically injured. They rushed her to the closest hospital and she would die 2 days later. Now, I'm pretty sure the police had cleared Rhiannon's ex-boyfriend from any wrongdoing in the case. So somebody in this area was driving down this road, did not see her, and hit her. But I can't even say that because all it says is online that the Great Bend Police Department don't know the circumstances related to this case. So was this an accident? Was this intentional? Not much is said. I don't know if the car that hit her tried to stop, tried to hit her. I don't know if there was any tire marks on the ground. We have no idea. But I can tell you this, Rhiannon Young was walking alongside this highway right here. Somebody did hit her, and instead of stopping and trying to render aid, they kept going and they killed her. Right across the street from where I'm at is the Great Bend Airport. And 45 years ago, right here in this empty stretch of land was the Nelson Trailer Park. And in this trailer park lived a couple. It was Mary and Douglas Walter, and they had a 5-year-old kid. Now, Mary, she had a full-time job and she also went to school. She wanted to be a nurse. So her husband, Doug, would go to work. She would either go to work on any particular day, and then on the days that she went to school, she would drop her daughter off at the babysitter. So on January 24th, 1980, she wakes up in the morning. She's supposed to go to school that day, and she drops her kid off with the babysitter. Now, by the time 3 p.m. comes, she's supposed to pick up her kid from the babysitters, but she never did. And so the babysitter calls the phone of the residence where she lived at in the trailer park here, and nobody answered. So she calls Doug at work and she says, hey, Mary hasn't been here to pick up Pamela. So Douglas goes, picks up his kid, and he comes back here to this location. Now, they lived in the trailer towards the front of the trailer park. So Douglas comes home, I think about this time now, it might be around 5 or 6 o'clock. He opens the door to the trailer, he goes into the room and he sees his wife lying on her back, looking face up in a robe covered in blood. She's dead. Now, normally when it comes to the crime of murder, you're always going to have a reason for why the crime was committed, whether it be sexual in nature, a revenge killing, or some kind of financial gain. However, what perplexed investigators in this case was that it appeared that none of those were the possible reason. According to the autopsy, Mary was not raped, and sadly, she was shot and killed with the couple's own weapon. It was a .22 caliber pistol that was used in the crime. She was shot 12 times. That means that whoever committed this murder emptied all the bullets into her and reloaded and fired again. And there was a couple different people that were persons of interest to the Great Bend Police Department. One of them was 25-year-old Stephen Hanks. Now, at the time, he's simply a person of interest, along with a few other individuals. Now, as this murder would go unsolved for the next 40 some odd years, Doug, who has since passed, he has always said that he believes that the person responsible was Stephen Hanks. Now, I don't know the reason as to what evidence, new evidence, came up to the eyes of the detectives working this case, but they opened it back up, and in 2022, they're saying new evidence. I don't believe it's physical, but I don't know. But they basically just said that new evidence in the matter all led to Stephen Hanks. So in 2022, they interview him, and this time now he's 68 years old. Now, I don't know if their evidence is hearsay, if it's circumstantial, or they actually got some kind of DNA. But they would interview him, and he confessed. He said yes, that he did kill Mary, and that he described details of the crime that only the killer would know. So the deal that Stephen Hanks had worked with the prosecutors in the case was that he were to plead guilty to the murder, and in exchange, the judge would more than likely sentence him to a minimum of 5 years, but not to exceed 25. However, the judge, he doesn't have to go with the prosecution's recommendation. He could do whatever he wants within the limits of the law. So when he's sentenced, the judge says, no, he's not going to go with the prosecution's, suggestion that he's going to go minimum of 10 years in prison and not to exceed 25. So in all likelihood, this guy, hopefully anyways, will never get out of prison. And people, that have read about this case, the question that remains is, why did you kill her? There was no sex assault involved. It was not a robbery. Nothing came up missing. What was the point of all of this? You never said. You never said. This is the final resting place of Mary Robin Walter. And it took a while, 44 years a while, but her murder was finally solved, and the man responsible will never hurt anybody ever again. Okay, that concludes this video. All of a sudden now, within the last day, this cold wind has all of a sudden came running across Kansas. It's been very, very warm this month, but cooler temperatures are coming, and they're coming quick. So with that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm heading to Wichita. We're gonna stay there for about a few days, and then we're gonna eventually go on to Texas. Anyways, I will see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed it. Rest in peace to all of the victims involved in this video, in this matter, these matters. I'll catch up with you in the next video. Peace out.